So if we look at the Earth here, this amazing rock in the middle of space, we can see that every single day it is just bathed in energy from the sun. So much energy hits Earth from the sun every single day as heat. But in fact, every single day, when you're on the dark side, when it's nighttime, all of that energy, or lots and lots of energy, leaves the Earth. So heat is constantly arriving to Earth, heat energy, but it's actually also constantly leaving Earth. And it's very fortunate that the sun is there that constantly replaces it. And that's what happens with energy, but matter is a very different thing. So if we think about all of the matter, all of the atoms on Earth, all of the stuff on Earth has been the same for billions of years. It doesn't change. Matter isn't just flying off into space, and matter is not just flying in from space. It's basically stayed constant for billions and billions of years. So in fact, matter, it isn't replenished from space, it constantly cycles around. And the cycling of matter is called a biogeochemical cycle, which means living and the Earth, matter's constantly cycling around all of those things. So we can have a look at one example of a biogeochemical cycle here, and it's the carbon cycle. So we can think of carbon dioxide, well, it's constantly cycling, but if we look at it in the atmosphere, well, there's lots of carbon in the atmosphere and carbon dioxide, but then that's constantly taken in to plants via photosynthesis. And of course, we eat plants, and plants are living things themselves, so they respire, and we respire, we do cellular respiration, and that releases carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. But sometimes, plants or animals die, and we end up going into, we go into the soil. And in fact, if we're buried in the soil for millions of years, we'll end up as fossilized carbon. We'll end up as fossil fuels. So that carbon, which was in the atmosphere, went into a living thing, and then the living thing died and became fossil fuels buried deep underground. So there's some carbon under there. And then, of course, we burn those fossil fuels. We dig them up and burn them, and that creates more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So you can see it's this cycling around. And the same in the sea. The sea has carbon dioxide in it, so that's constantly coming in from the atmosphere, and it's leaving the sea back into the atmosphere. But of course, organisms, kelp and seaweed, they do photosynthesis, and that's eaten by other organisms in the ocean, so carbon is constantly cycling around in there. And again, some organisms in the ocean die, and that carbon contained in those carbon life forms goes to the bottom of the ocean. And then, of course, it may form fossil fuels, and we would dig it up and burn it again. But so you can see that carbon is constantly cycling around the atmosphere in a biogeochemical cycle. And so is water. Water constantly cycles around. It evaporates up, and it rains back down, and you drink it, and you excrete it. So it's constantly being cycled around. And nitrogen is constantly cycled around too. And so all of these chemicals are constantly cycling around our planet Earth in what's called a biogeochemical cycle.